single dad fixed woman's car on way to blind date, not knowing she was the date he dreaded. The rain had only just stopped when David Hale knelt beside the broken-down sedan on the side of the empty highway, his jeans soaked and his fingers numb from the cold morning wind. He didn't know the woman who stood a few feet away, hugging her coat like a shield, but something about the way she looked at the stalled engine, tired, helpless, frustrated, pulled him toward her before he could think twice. He had been on his way to a blind date he wasn't ready for, dreading every mile, but life had a way of stopping him exactly where he didn't expect. He didn't know it yet, but the woman whose car he was fixing, the stranger whose eyes carried a quiet storm, was the very date he had been trying to avoid. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and unexpected twists of fate, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to KH Stories. Your support truly keeps these stories alive. David wiped the grease from his hands and leaned closer under the open hood. The metal was cold, the smell of burnt oil cutting through the damp air. He had fixed countless engines as a part-time mechanic after his full shift at the warehouse, but lately everything felt heavier. His responsibilities, his exhaustion, his loneliness. Being a single dad wasn't something he had chosen. Life had just placed the weight in his arms one dark evening 2 years ago when his wife never came home from work. Ever since, every morning felt like another hill to climb. Every night a silent battle where he told himself to keep going for his daughter, Emily, who was only 8, and who needed him to be stronger than he felt. The woman he was helping watched him with a mixture of worry and gratitude. She was in her early 30s, soft-featured, with dark hair still wet from the drizzle, strands clinging to her cheeks. Her name, she later told him, was Elise. She had been driving toward a small cafe downtown for a blind date set up by her cousin, but she admitted she wasn't sure she should go. She confessed that she had grown tired of meeting people who wanted something she couldn't give, tired of pretending she wasn't guarded, tired of feeling like a disappointment when she slowly tried to reveal the bruised parts of her past. Her voice trembled when she spoke, as if she hadn't talked to someone kind in a long time. In that moment, David felt something familiar in her tone, something he recognized from staring at his own reflection late at night. The sense of being worn down not by one tragedy, but by a slow accumulation of hurts and disappointments. The kind that didn't show on the surface but lived inside the bones. As he worked, the sky began to lighten. The wet asphalt reflected the silver of the rising day, and cars passed only occasionally, sending a cool rush of air toward them. David knew he was running late for the date he had promised his friend to attend, but the truth was he wasn't eager to go. Blind dates always felt like a reminder that his life had broken into pieces he didn't know how to put back together. He didn't want to sit across from someone pretending to have it all together when he knew he didn't. Still, he finished fixing the car, tightening the last bolt with steady hands. He stood up slowly, stretching his back, and told Elise that she would be able to drive fine now. She looked at him with a small, grateful smile, the kind that seemed to soften the cold air around them. She offered to pay him, but he refused instantly, shaking his head without hesitation. Kindness wasn't a transaction for him. It was survival, the one thing he could still control in a world that had taken so much. They shared a quiet moment before parting. Elise drove away, still glancing at him through the mirror, and David returned to his truck. He took a breath, long and uncertain, before continuing toward the cafe where the date he dreaded was waiting. The cafe was quiet when he arrived, the bell above the door jingling softly as he stepped inside. The warm smell of roasted coffee filled the room, mixing with the faint sweetness of cinnamon. He searched the small tables for the stranger he had been matched with, trying to recall the minimal details his sister had shared. A woman named Elise, brown hair, kind eyes, nervous about dating. He felt his stomach twist as he scanned the room, wondering how awkward this was going to be, how long he would have to sit politely before excusing himself. But then, as he turned, his breath hitched. Sitting by the window, staring into her cup as if gathering the courage to simply breathe, was Elise, the same woman whose car he had just fixed. The same woman who had stood in the cold morning drizzle, heart quietly unraveling in front of him without even knowing she was doing it. The same woman he had felt an inexplicable pull toward on the highway. Their eyes met, shock blooming on both faces at the same time. Elise stood up slowly, almost as if afraid she was imagining him. He took a hesitant step toward her, breath shallow, heart pounding harder than it had in years. A strange, unspoken understanding hung between them, fragile, unexpected, strangely comforting. They didn't say anything. They just sat, both stunned and unsure how to process the twist fate had just crafted for them. The world outside the cafe seemed to move slower, the morning sun stretching across the sky like a warm, quiet blessing. They talked for hours, long after either of them expected to stay. They shared pieces of their lives they rarely disclosed to strangers. Elise spoke about the heartbreak that reshaped her world, the betrayal she had never fully recovered from. David told her about his late wife, about raising Emily alone, about the weight of missing someone while trying to be strong for someone else. There was no rush to their conversation, no pressure, no pretending, just two broken, healing people sitting across from each other, breathing the same softened air, feeling something shift inside them. Over the following weeks, David felt life begin to change in quiet, careful ways. Elise became part of his days, not fully, not drastically, but gently, like a soft light slipping through curtains after a long night. She offered help without overstepping. She listened without judging. She showed up in small moments, lifting edges of sadness David didn't realize he carried so heavily. Emily adored her instantly. The little girl had grown cautious around new people, but something about Elise made her feel